Okay, welcome officially to episode number 1. I am Matt Franceschi, and with me I have Adam Wolf, Ben Bachman, and Dave Mead. What's going on, guys?
Howdy.
Hey, Maddie.
Hey, dude.
Excited to be here.
Yeah, always a pleasure.
So what are we talking about?
Well, today, main topic's going to be World of Warcraft, completely new topic. Nobody's ever done it. So definitely excited to
believe
get
it.
Yep. And then trending events, we have a lot going on. Obviously, the gaming industry has been kind of crazy as of late. But a lot of good topics like Bungie Splits with Activision. Epic Games announces its own digital store to compete directly with Steam, which I think is a huge deal, and a lot of other things. But let's talk about WoW right off the bat, and just talk about really, anything that you'd like. But let's just start off with talking about WoW Vanilla and the initial release, and what made it so great and so popular right off the bat, and why is WoW still talked about today as, in my opinion, being the best MMO RPG ever. I mean, Ben, you might have different opinions based on Final Fantasy XI, but I guess we can get into that argument.
Certainly, the old school. If we're going old school, I'd say Final Fantasy XI, but let's put our concentration into the good old Warcraft. There's no feeling like that original logging into the original vanilla WoW.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, let's just keep going with that and just talk about like why it was so good and why it is so nostalgic, and then later, talk about why BFA kind of ruined a lot of that.
Yeah, sure. We all have experience with vanilla, except I think Matt. So
yeah, I have zero.
I know me personally.
I'm useless.
Logging in as the Horde, Troll, Shaman, and Dorator, I think was the starting area for them, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
Yeah, that's the place.
You got it. It was, and just running around with your friends, man, trying to figure out the UI and everything like that.
Yeah, it really was like that, the newness of it, right?
Yeah.
And back then there really wasn't all that, like the WoW wiki and what we had, like Thoughtbot was the thing. You had to figure out a lot of things for yourself. There was no add-ons holding your hand, that kind of thing. But,
and like that was like the first game of its kind. There was no game with that many players in that big of a world.
Yeah.
It was like that was, and I think what it really helped it was like the Blizzard name and the Warcraft brand that was already there.
Lore.
Yeah, how big was Warcraft 3? Prior to.
Like Warcraft 3 and Warcraft games were huge. Like that was Blizzard's number one. That was Blizzard's number one thing. And then they kind of just piggybacked onto that and made it into WoW, and here we are today.
Do you remember the advertisement like at GameStop? I don't remember any single game.
It was huge, man.
The same like recognition, like those big cutout posters. You'd have like Arthas is like split in half with the Lich King, and there'd be giant cutouts all over the place. It was amazing. Like that, it really felt, in my memory, probably the first time that a game got
I think
that hyped.
It's
Warcraft
important to also say that like it was the timing. I think timing had a big thing to do with it. Like we were saying, the first of its kind. There was MMOs before that with EverQuest and Final Fantasy XI, and I mean you could even say like Phantasy Star Online. But this was
I guess you could.
The world was expansive, and they did that with Final Fantasy XI and EverQuest too. But the lore is what really got people, and I think the battle between Alliance and Horde, that was a big driver for people too as well. I mean, like we had that, and even in our in our small group of friends, some of us went Alliance and some of us went Horde, and that was a huge driving force too as well.
Yeah. A lot of battling it out. in the cafeteria.
Yeah, I would think anybody pretty serious about the game would have to go Alliance, right? Horde.
All right, turn this shit off.
Probably the most hardcore players, yeah.
All the best players, yeah. That's
I did Horde first because my brother was giving me grief to do Horde, and then I ended up switching over with Wolf and doing a Night Elf.
Right, because there's no crossplay, right?
No, in the beginning, no.
Okay.
Original Vanilla WoW was like you're very strict. I'm pretty sure at the beginning you couldn't even have.
You see him, man.
Yeah, I don't even think you could have like an Alliance character on a server where you already had a Horde. Like
originally, you couldn't. No.
Yeah, you were like locked out. You were locked into your faction, which is pretty cool. Was cool in my opinion.
Yeah, it was a big decision, right? You picked your side and you stayed with it.
The beginning areas were a huge driver for me. Everything seemed like the story was well put together. They kept you moving at a good pace with the quests and everything. I really liked the start. Like vanilla starting areas were a big part of me starting to like the game.
That and you know what I mean. You level up every few levels. You get a new ability or a new skill or a new something. Your character was like always progressing along as you went up you kept
you got to get something out of
it. You felt your power increasing as you leveled.
Mm-hmm.
And like in regards to the raids and stuff, like a lot of the raids were more iconic. Warcraft characters.
The lore was.
Yeah, like you're talking about like you're killing or fighting characters that were already built up so much over time, and now you finally got to experience like fighting them in first person.
What was the raid for like the original WoW?
Molten Core.
Oh, that was Molten Core. Okay.
Banner. Yeah.
Anixia.
Yeah, and then they I don't know if you remember like the quest. I mean, I'm just recently done them again, I guess, from the vanilla private servers. That illegal thing you're not supposed to do. But it's they put like Anixia. She's I don't know for the Horde side, or the Alliance side. She's like in Stormwind, buddying up to the king kind of thing, and as you're doing the quest line, she kind of makes herself apparent. It was really cool, and you felt like this attachment to the story.
Right. Yeah.
What's going on here? And then you got to go take her down afterwards. It's
right. Yeah, I mean, like I said, man, no other feeling advancing in that game and buddying up with all your friends and doing instances and stuff. That was probably my best MMO experience. That and Final Fantasy 11.
And like even with all like the bugs and server issues, like server overload early on, like it was still a good enough game where like you didn't care. Like
you sat there and waited for it to come back up. If the servers went down, you're like, oh, I'm just gonna sit here for an hour and see when they come back up.
Did we have like more patience back then?
Because we had more time.
Yeah,
you were like 14 years old, like.
You had more time. You had more time, and like technology wasn't advanced then, so you were used to that kind of shit.
Yeah, we were used to dial up, right? Yeah, you wait 5 minutes to get online.
I think another thing was we weren't so deep into the instant gratification that we get now from games. Everything has to load up. Boom, we needed to load up real quick. Oh, it's not downloading quick enough. Oh, this patch is taking forever. It's like
it's like 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like 8,000 gigs.
Back then we had more. I think you might be right, Wolf. We definitely had more time, but also I think that we just had a different mindset where these things were so new and cool to us that we were willing to wait.
Well, it's like when you bring up Final Fantasy 11. I don't have much experience with EverQuest, but I'm sure it was similar. That it was just a huge time investment, and if you compare what those MMOs were doing at the time compared to what WoW did, I mean, they had large, expansive worlds and a lot of lore, but what they didn't have was that completely interconnected world like WoW did. It wasn't completely instanced.
Yep.
The only thing that was really instanced were, the large dungeons and raids, because obviously you couldn't have, everybody in that same place at the same time. That wouldn't be very fun. But it really helped.
Definitely, WoW was the first one to like deviate from that I mean, the only two examples really are EverQuest and Final Fantasy 11, but they kind of like said we're gonna do something different here, and they deviated from that, and because those two games were party based in leveling, both
exactly.
And
there was really wasn't solo play for the most part, and maybe initially, but WoW gave you that option. You could just pick it up and play it for a half hour if you really wanted to.
Right.
Those other games didn't have
the
that
PvP, the PvP part was the huge part for a lot of people, man. That they loved being able to, talk shit.
Yeah, that like knowing at any moment.
Yeah.
A lot of the servers, I mean, were PvP based. That sense of looking over your shoulder every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
That's through like your really slow leveling process, traveling to different places. You're worried about, Joe Orc coming up behind you and smacking you in the head while you're killing panthers in the forest.
Yeah.
And no flying mounts, so people can't just like dive bomb you. Like you were on the ground, always interacting.
Yep. When did they add the flying mounts? What was that? Was that
Burning Crusade? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Burning Crusade.
Yeah.
Which they did lock it away. It wasn't.
Well, let's start dipping into those. So what was it? Burning Crusade, Frozen Throne.
Two amazing expansions. Those were.
I was still enjoying the game at that point.
Cataclysm,
really the pinnacle of WoW was probably Frozen Throne.
Yeah.
Because you finally got to meet with your big bad friend Arthas.
Yep.
That
was a good experience.
Build up character of anything in Warcraft, and then you finally, after all that time, you finally get to like go to his throne room and deal with him.
Well, I know that those were the highest numbers. Was Wrath of the Lich King, right, for subscribers? But and really wasn't that all the further the story really went with Warcraft 3? Like after
pretty much, after that.
They
were just kind of swimming.
What was
water there?
What was after it? Cataclysm. Like, what was the story behind that?
Deathwing, Shatters of the World.
Oh, that was Deathwing. Okay.
Yeah. So they took everything that you really liked.
Yeah.
About all the old zones. I shouldn't say all of them, most of them, and then destroyed them essentially.
Jacked it up.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah, and then after that they brought in Pandaria and Ken's favorite characters.
Yeah.
But everybody else.
What can I say? I was slow and I like to eat a lot.
Yeah.
But no, I played avidly through Burning Crusade, and then Frozen Throne. I got to the level cap, and I made a Death Knight. And then I started doing some raiding, and just fell out of it. It wasn't gripping me anymore.
Yeah, 3 expansion. By the 3rd expansion, I was kind of hitting the wall too. As far as it was different. I mean, it was a different objective, I guess, but the gameplay was very similar to the original game.
So if this question could come out of like super left field, because I like honestly have no idea what I'm talking about when it comes to WoW. But like one of the main griefs I see people talking about with Battle for Azeroth is that things are changing too much.
Yeah.
That the game really isn't the same anymore, and a lot of the things that people used to like to do, they don't get to do anymore, or it's too grindy, or Dave, I'm sure you can touch on this more, now or later, but so I mean that's just strange to me, just observing that in Cataclysm, like it was too much the same and people got sick of it, but now like it's kind of just like a shell of what it used to be, and now people kind of can't stand it.
Yeah.
I would say the biggest thing is like there's still like the big grinds and everything that there used to be, but they feel less rewarding. It's not like
that's a huge factor in all games, I'm finding out.
Like, and that's due to what, Dave? The gear, or
like in vanilla, like okay, say you go into Molten Core and you cleared this son of a bitch a million times, and you finally can build your legendary Sulfurous Hand of Ragnaros. You got this cool ass thing. And like not a lot of people had it, and like you walked into town and somebody saw that on you, and like everybody's like, "Holy shit! Like, this guy got it."
That's awesome.
Now it's like there's not enough things that are unique like that. Like we've kind of got to the point where like everybody wants to feel included and everybody has to have something.
Yeah.
And there's not really like there's not a lot of things in Warcraft anymore that are like exclusive for like the person that's really, really good.
Well, how did that happen? Did they like increase drop rates or just take like rare items out of the game?
All it is them catering to casual players.
Yep.
That's
all.
They did.
I mean, they essentially took them out of the game, right? Like.
Okay.
A lot of right. Like a lot of the legendary stuff got kind of phased out, or like everybody could get them. Like a legendary in vanilla was like months and months and months of labor in a 40-man raid group.
Ooh.
Whereas like a legendary in Legion was like a random drop and you got 1 million of them. So
no, I wasn't making a bad noise about you saying how much time it's taking. I was making a bad noise about the fact that you're telling me like they like have made it easier for everyone else. Like that was the thing with like I hate to go back to Final Fantasy 11. It's like if you wanted to like have the best shit in Final Fantasy 11, like that's and I can relate with you on the vanilla stuff for WoW. Like you had to work for your shit. You had to put in the time. And it's rough now because I'm more of a casual player now. And I know you guys are in some ways too. So it's kind of like, yeah, it'd be cool to have all that shit, but at the same time, it's also like you had respect for the people who had like the real good shit. It was the like real this drive. It was almost like a god concept. You saw him with like the dopest mount, and like you said, the sulfur. I remember that. Was that a two-handed mace?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing that shit and be like, "Where'd you get that?"
Yeah,
seriously,
like an enhancement shaman and come up and Wind Fury proc on you and one-shot you. Like, it was just, I don't know. It was a cool time.
I still remember. I mean, that's one of the things I still remember from Vanilla WoW when it was in its heyday. Was a guy on the opposing faction, an orc. His name was Dave. Actually, on our server, he had both. He had both legendary items. And
wait, that was Dave.
Yeah. When we used to PvP against him, he'd either have like Thunder Fury out or the Hammer Bag. And
I'm getting shivers thinking about getting smashed down, dude.
He would literally. I was a rogue. He would just destroy me. But it was. You would look at that guy and like, how did he ever do this? I mean, he was just.
Oh, how about Warsong? Remember, Wolf? What did I call it?
Warsong Glutch.
Glutch.
What is that?
It's a what are the battlegrounds?
Yeah, it's a battleground. 10 versus 10, capture the flag.
Oh, okay.
Well, but when that shit first came out, that was fucking sick.
Well, even those were a blast. I remember we used to PvP like crazy. But before that,
Altaric Valley.
They didn't when they didn't have the battlegrounds in. We were only playing maybe for a few months when that was a thing. But all you could do was world PvP.
Yeah.
And people they still get all nostalgic about it. The giant, you'd have like giant raids of people. It might be 80 to 100 people on a side fighting it out in those contested zones. Like hills.
Or sometimes you bring it right up to Orgrimmar, or right up to fucking Storm, or right up to the gates.
Yeah, they come out.
And you're like running away from the NPCs and shit, like trying to stay away from the strong ass NPCs.
It was such a novel thing.
Yeah.
Nobody else had done it.
Nope.
And no one had done it to that scale. There's so many people playing and doing this, and that's what made it so much fun.
Yeah.
You didn't feel like
good community. Yeah. People are always helping each other. It's not like that anymore, man. from my little experiences.
Solo, you don't have to interact at all. You just do what you need to do, and you don't need anybody's help.
Yeah.
So, do you guys think, besides a lot of the core, I don't want to say core gameplay mechanics changing, but Dave, like you said, with the accessibility of getting some of the really strong items just being easier for a lot of players, and some of that like exclusivity falling off, do you think that some of the pitfalls that BFA is seeing right now is due to like an aging player base, or a player base that has been playing it just for so long that they're just getting sick of playing World of Warcraft and there's not as many new players? like new younger players. Like it seems to me, like an outsider looking at the industry as a whole, like a lot of the younger players are playing things like League or Fortnite, and they're not jumping into World of Warcraft. Like, do you think that that's a real thing, or am I just like seeing that and misreading it?
I would probably say that's true to some extent, because like for me, like I've played WoW since it came out, and I've played every expansion, and like I don't think if I'd never played WoW initially, I don't think I'd be playing it today. Like I keep coming back because I've always played it.
You're trying to get that nostalgia back, man.
I think for me, like when a new WoW expansion comes out, like that, like it's the best game to play for like the first 2 weeks when everything's new and fresh.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I'll sit there and I can play it for hours and hours and hours and never move. But then after that, first month or so, kind of everything's not new and it goes back to like kind of the same old thing.
With the World of Warcraft in general, what I've noticed when I've tried to return, it seems like things are getting diluted. It's getting a little bit too expansive. You like Wolf was saying, you had that novelty in vanilla and even the first 2 expansions, and when I've got back on, it just seems like it's just disconnected a little bit. The world is. It's too. It's not well put together, in my opinion. It's like it just keeps on piling up,
Yeah, it just seems like they're expanding it just because they have to make another one.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Which, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, obviously they're going to do that because it's so popular, but...
Right.
Yeah.
You can't blame them, but, I wish that some of these developers, would be able to find that a better balance in being able to recognize maybe one to move to a different project, put more emphasis and maybe start a new MMO, like get that novelty and that nostalgia that we're looking for back to your base,
Do you think that the WoW Classic remake is going to fix any of this? Do you see? I mean, obviously, I think that a lot of players will come back and try out WoW Classic. But do you think that it's going to be good enough that players are going to stick? Like, we have the stats here that at the BFA launch there were 3.2 million players, and then as of October 28, about 2018, just like 2 or 3 months later, there were only 1.7 million. So about half the subscriber base left in that amount of time. Do you think that Classic will have that same turnover, or do you think that it'll get players to actually play it and stick instead of just, leaving immediately?
I don't think people are going to leave immediately. I think the base.
You can't play vanilla and not.
Yeah.
You can't.
People are going to be trucking, man.
Yeah, you have to play it a lot.
I don't think anybody is going to stick around, like you said, and we all know it. You have to put a lot more time to get to the end game in vanilla, and I don't think that when you talk about new players, people joining the game for the first time, I don't think any of those people aren't the people that are going to want this.
No, right, I agree with that.
Right.
So it's really gonna it's gonna really be interesting to see how that pans out. It's gonna be. I think I might try it. I haven't decided yet.
I bet they lose a lot of people really quick.
Do you think that there's going to be players that are playing Battle for Azeroth like on a daily, weekly basis that are also playing Classic, or do you think that just because it seems to me that you almost can't play both, right? I mean,
I don't know. The diehard fans will justify it somehow, man.
It just seems like a big time commitment to me. I'm not saying that nobody will do it, but I couldn't see a large amount of people playing.
No, it's younger people or people in college that are going to be able to do it. Like the older people that played vanilla initially on release are too old to like commit that much time to video games anymore. Yep. Because of jobs and kids and families and shit.
They'll have to make the choice between one or the other.
Yeah.
I think it'll just be one of those things too where like you can play.
No.
Seriously, man.
I'm between BFA.
Oh, the kids, the family, my wife, my beautiful wife, the house, I gotta give it up.
There's going to be articles coming out about that, man leaves wife and kids to legendary item and Classic.
Go do Molten Core all over.
So let me ask you, Dave, because I'm pretty I don't know anything about the new expansion really. What was the thing? I mean, the whole thing of it was like PvP. The open world PvP was back, right?
That's part of it. Yeah, like they kind of changed everything. So there used to be like PvP servers and PvE servers.
Yeah.
But now they kind of just they made it so like you either opt into PvP, like you go into a major city and you opt into PvP, so you're always in PvP and you get sharded with other players that are in PvP.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get extra rewards for like doing the world quests and shit.
Okay.
Or you could just opt out of PvP and then you wouldn't be able to fight each other.
Okay.
So like that was part of the thing that they were like, I mean, it's not the main thing, but it's one of the things that they were kind of like, try to.
Yeah. I thought that was the main thing, the battle for Azeroth, I thought that was the whole concept behind it.
Yeah, but the issue with it was because of how the sharding works and everything, like it usually ends up like you get on a shard that has like a bunch of Horde players and not a bunch of Alliance players, and then the Horde, like 40 Horde guys, just mashes like the 5 Alliance guys.
Right.
That, and then like the sharding has been like incredibly laggy lately. So like you get on these giant shards with like 80 people and 80 people, and between all the ability animations and everything, like you can't actually, you know what I mean? You have like a 2-second input, like you hit your key and then like it doesn't cast for 2 seconds, and it like they made it like, oh, let's do this cool world PvP, and then like you can't really actually do it because for however they shard things, I guess doesn't.
What the hell is
basically they sharded. They basically sharded on this one.
What is it? I keep hearing you say it. I have no idea.
Sharding. So like they take like a bunch of people and put them on like a separate, just call it realm, like a separate area of like a separate server, it's called a shard.
They can only interact with each other, but everybody else disappears.
Shard.
Yeah.
No,
I knew you weren't saying sharding, but I just didn't know what it was. So I was hoping you weren't.
Yeah, it's just so like
be really lost.
So like when an expansion launches and there's 1 million people, everybody's logging in, everybody's in the same exact spot, right? So to make the servers not explode, you shard the people into like different instances of the same area.
Yeah.
Shard.
Yeah, but who cleans it all up though, right? Like
you're the nurse.
Yeah.
So.
Random question, Dave. I keep also seeing people talk about Azerite, and the thing that I get from it is that it's like some sort of material that you need in order to like build the best gear. But like I've also read that there's some kind of like pitfall where you need like a certain amount of Azerite to get certain traits onto your gear, but then as soon as you get stronger, all of that Azerite or all of those traits go away somehow, then you need to collect more. And I've seen that being like a huge downside of BFA. Like, can you just talk about that a little bit? Because I honestly just want to know, like, what is the problem with it?
So that was more of an issue initially when it launched. So like you would level up, collect Azerite in the world from doing world quests or PvP or raids or whatever, and power up your necklace, which is like your new artifact. And then that unlocks traits in your armor to make your character stronger. But like initially when the game first launched, you're getting this, you have a piece of gear that's like item level 325. And then you can unlock the traits on it, but then you do the first raid, you get a 370 piece of gear. Now you can't unlock the traits yet because your Azerite necklace is not powerful enough yet. So like you got a better piece of gear, but you lost traits because you couldn't unlock them, which was an issue at the beginning, but now it's not an issue because like with the way Azerite scales as the expansion goes on, you level up your necklace faster to unlock the traits faster. So that was more an issue at launch, a month into launch, than it is now.
Okay.
Yeah, it just all seems so it's too much, man.
Complexity for the sake of complexity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
It's like kind of complex the way it sounds, but like for how complex it is, it doesn't make interesting gameplay decisions or like change things really.
It doesn't drive you to want to play the game.
A lot of like
kind of just like it's here.
Yeah. A lot of things you unlock are just like, this ability now does more damage. It's not like super interactive. It's just like more of a flat buff.
Well, I get that they fixed it now, but I mean, when you say it like that, the premise of it, so you get this brand new shiny item. The first thing you want to do is use it. But oh wait, now you got to consider that this thing you've been working on for the last month or two, you just lost all of its power because you're using this new item, so you don't want to use it. Was that kind of what it was coming down to?
It was just like you would unlock a trait and it would make your character stronger, but then you'd get an upgraded piece of gear and you couldn't use the same trait on that gear because your necklace wasn't strong enough yet.
So you got something good, but you essentially.
Yeah, that sounds like a real. That sounds like a real pain.
And I'm reading here, reputation grinds are crazy now, huh?
I mean, they're kind of.
What do you even need reputation for?
Get items, shit like that.
Is it like for quests or?
No, it's usually to unlock like cosmetic stuff, or like recipes for professions, mounts.
But overall, Dave, what do you say? Do you think this is the slow climb downwards for this game? I mean, I guess not slow.
Yeah, I mean, do you see yourself getting off? Or even like your raid members, like, do you guys talk about like, hey, like I love WoW and I love the characters and I love the story, and I love the nostalgia, but like, if this is like gonna go on for a few more months, like I think I'm just gonna be done.
Like a lot of people, well, I mean, obviously from launch to now, there's a lot of people that have quit or don't play a lot. Like people just log into raid or log on to raid and do like a keystone or something and not play as much. So I would say the biggest thing I think too is the expansion was just rushed. Like they were, you know what I mean? They had the pressure to hurry up and release something to make money, and it definitely needed more time to be polished.
Yeah, Blizzard seems like they just have been fucking up a lot lately, man.
I feel like that's the story. When you say that, that's been like the story of so many AAA games where they're just pushing it out the door to get the sales, and then they go back.
Well, me and Matt were talking about this the other day. It's because people, when these game developers start, they're passionate, they're familiar with the story and the lore. It's, they're more than familiar, they love it. And what happens when they are greeted with, success is now the money people get their hooks into them.
Yeah.
And they're eventually going to get rid of them because they've stole their property. They stole their all the information that they need in order to continue to expand the game. But now I think what we're starting to see is a kickback where it's like, no, we want these people who are passionate. We don't want the people who are trying to take our fucking money. I think it's starting to like materialize,
Oh yeah, I mean you can see that like all throughout.
I think
like the past
part
year
of the
or two, yeah.
I think the main problem is like they're still passionate developers and creators and everything on these companies. It's just the companies are beholden to their shareholders and they're under a lot of pressure to release things to make the shareholders money, which I mean, it's kind of just how life works in general for anything.
Right.
Yeah, they just kind of got too large, right?
But they got like there's expectations now and people want returns on their money and they need that, so they force things down the pipeline and don't give the people that are creating them the necessary time to iterate and make sure it's the best it can be.
Right, which in the short term is fine because you can get away with it for an expansion or a game or two, but in the long run, I mean, your consumers are going to leave.
Yep.
Right.
I think that's what we're seeing right now.
So before we move away from WoW completely and jump into the trending events, I kind of have a question like as a whole for like the Warcraft characters and story, because I think like that's really been the most essential piece for not only Warcraft success, but I think Blizzard's success as a company. Like when you look at Warcraft 3, you look at WoW, Hearthstone, Here's the Storm, which had no success, but we'll put it in there anyway. But like really, Blizzard as a company, like maybe like other than StarCraft and Diablo, since they're different franchises, those are great games as well. I'm sorry I left those out, but like the other games that I just mentioned, they're completely successful due to these characters that people have grown up with and like fell in love with. And now with a lot of these games going by the wayside and things being ruined, do you guys see these characters coming back in any other games, or are we kind of seeing like the death of these characters in this lore overall and Blizzard moving into things like Overwatch and new IP?
I think we all got something to say, so Go ahead, Wolf. You go first.
So I mean, WoW does have a lot of great lore, a lot of great characters, and like I said earlier about them, it almost feels like they were treading through uncharted waters there after Wrath of the Lich King. As far as where the story went, as far as what these characters are doing, and not all of that had been received positively. I think the most recent one was that the BFA thing with Sylvanas doing some questionable things that the community just wasn't happy with. They're essentially, in this case, destroying, this image or, what we thought that these characters kind of stood for. Before our own eyes. We didn't want to see certain things happen throughout the story.
Original Sylvanas is definitely sick,
right?
Character.
So honestly, I think it might just be in their best interest to maybe move away from these characters for a little bit, give them a rest. I mean, their story, it doesn't have to be infinite, right? How many years has it been that we've been talking about these same people? You can always bring them back in a game like a Heroes of the Storm, like they did, just to, there's no real lore added to that, but you get to see some of your favorite characters and have them battle it out against each other. It was a cool concept.
Yeah.
But maybe Overwatch and new things is what they should be looking at right now.
Yeah. It's kind of weird because like you have this giant franchise that's like really, really good and really, really, really successful, but I think that the problem that they're really running into is you had all these like developed characters that everybody loved, and like they can only last so long because they die or whatever. And as far as like new characters, like I don't think they've been that great at developing lots of new characters to like fill the old roles.
Right.
Yeah, like rich backstory characters.
Yeah, like they just don't feel the same way that the original characters felt like. They feel like more rushed or like not developed properly. And I think that's kind of the issue. And not only that, but like just the way games have been shifting, like MMOs are kind of like, I mean, MMOs basically are dead.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Besides WoW, which is arguably dying.
Mm-hmm. They're all dying.
So it's just like people want instant gratification and things that aren't as big of like a time sink.
Yep.
So I don't know how.
Do you think
they get paid to make shit up, not me?
Do you think it's just? I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, the instant gratification thing is a great point. But do you think of something as great as the original WoW? I mean, this is a really hard question to answer, but something as impactful as WoW with the story and the characters and something as fresh could come out today. I mean, I can't even imagine what that would be because we've seen it all before. But if it were to come out and it was an MMO, would it have a chance of becoming a success and kind of having the impact that WoW did? Maybe not to the same extent, but still a big impact.
I don't think it'll ever happen strictly because the investment to like run an MMO and have it, have the servers and have all the support for it. Like there's better opportunities to make more money with less capital than MMOs. So I just don't see it.
It's changed. It's changed. I mean, it's developed. We've been watching it, man. It's developed into this thing that's more geared towards like micro transactions, and like we were just talking about, the instant gratification thing. I mean, that's the huge driver right now. Is people like fast-paced things. They like, great graphics. They won't, they don't want to skimp on the graphics whatsoever. Which I don't really like to either. But going back to
it's kind of hard to blame people, but
yeah, exactly. But I don't think that they could replicate. I mean, there's some really cool fantasy stuff out there right now that people could make a really cool MMO world. I mean, George R. Martin stuff. There's worlds out there that people have thought up that could make really cool games. It's just like Dave was saying. I don't think people are too calculated with, before it was like an experimental, the games were more experimental and everything. Now it's like the video game industry is here. It's going to be here for a long time. A lot of people play video games now. Back then there was a little bit more leeway to say like, oh, let's do this to try to see if it works. Now they have the idea of what, is going to be made and whatnot.
Yeah, that's true.
But
I think if they really wanted to, they could make a really good MMO that people would play. But like I said, the investment necessary to do it.
I think you got it right with that.
Like, why would there's no reason to do it. You can make a game like Hearthstone.
You
can make a game like Hearthstone or something that's very simple.
Yep.
And aesthetically pleasing and has microtransactions and doesn't require as much support and make way more money in a way shorter time period with way less investment. So, and considering these are all big companies that are trying to make money, they're going to make as much money as they possibly can.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
I think you got it right there, man. That's just sums it up pretty much. That's how it's gonna pan out with MMOs. I think they're just gonna die down, and there's we might get like a weird genre coming out of this. But what I was thinking about when we were talking about the lore, Wolf says set it down for a period of time. I think that's a good idea. Think about the single player games you could make with like a story with Arthas, or Illidan or Thrall. I mean, think about that. How cool, like an RPG or like a game that's like similar to like open world, like Witcher and stuff.
Or even like a top down, or even like a top down MOBA.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
the only way they would take a break from it though is like when WoW is actually dead. Like they're gonna milk WoW until they can't milk it anymore.
It's already set up, right? There's not that initial investment, like you said.
WoW's already
in place from years ago.
Yeah, everything in WoW has already been in place. There's no they have the infrastructure, they have all the code and everything. To remake a game like WoW from scratch, way too long, costs way too much fucking money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my last point here. On WoW is really, if this is the slow decline of WoW and the Warcraft characters in general, even like me not playing the game, I think that I'll be kind of sad about it just because I recognize that the game and the lore and the characters are super iconic.
Oh yeah.
Even just from somebody who plays like Hearthstone and Heroes of the Storm, like I even love the characters and I really don't even know them that well. Plus, like the World of Warcraft movie was great. That was obviously a joke. It's horrible, but I just think that I think that it's super not depressing, but I'll just say depressing because I can't think of another word, that they kind of misused the characters and the story up to this point and kind of got here because they had such a great thing and they kind of ruined it.
Yeah.
And it all goes back to like the big company profit thing, I think.
Of course.
Which, I mean, is just kind of the nature of the beast.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to touch on Warcraft before we move on, or?
It's going to be a hard subject to leave. I feel like. Crying. You crying a little bit? Yeah. Jaina.
Oh yeah, I do love Jaina. I mean, they're all great characters.
No, they are. Yeah.
Jaina, Illidan, Arthas. I mean, they're all great.
Before we leave WoW, the only thing I will say is I think with the next patch, 8.2, like the next content patch that like brings like Najhatar and the Naga lands and everything and all that new content, I think that's like their last chance to not save Warcraft, but at least save the expansion from being a complete letdown, which has the potential is there. It's just a matter of are they going to be able to realize it and have the time and the resources to do it.
But exactly, put the time. It seems we're so critical of these developers and everything, of like every game that we play, we're like critiquing the fuck out of it.
Yeah, this is the best game.
It does really make you think. It's like, dude, just like take your time. Right. You have, like you're saying, you have the resources, you have the team, like. Take your time and really work out everything on this one.
Yeah, I mean, like me as a player, and I'm sure you guys will say the same thing. Like, I would rather wait like another 3 months and play something truly great than just play something 3 months earlier and hate it. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Like, nobody wants to do that.
Mm-hmm.
No players want to do that, at least. I mean, it's cool for like a week, but
yeah, quality over quantity in like everything in my life, I would say.
Of course, especially with something like video games, which is like, which is more like, video games which are more like an art form. You don't want to just like pump out like a quantity of an art form. Like it turns to shit.
Yeah. It is art. It is art, man.
Right.
Well, isn't that what happened years ago? What, like in the 80s, where that maybe back then it was like the Wild West of video games, early 90s, where the video game market like crashed. Everyone was just pumping out whatever they could just to get a game out the door.
I was watching a documentary
we might be on the verge of that again.
That. Yeah. Well, it's so funny how complex and interesting and how in depth this shit gets. It's like the gaming industry has turned into like this extremely like deep, complex thing because of the demand for it, you know.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. I do know what you're saying.
I mean, there's just so many. That's so multifaceted and everything like that. It's interesting.
Well, let's jump over into trending events, and I'm sure we'll find some way to relate it back to
the WoW.
I'm sure we'll find a way to talk about it some more. Yeah. But all right. So first one, I kind of wanted to dive into. I thought it was pretty interesting, and I mean this ties into Blizzard as well. But the new Alien Isolation game is coming out on mobile. It's called Alien Blackout, and it's not a direct sequel to Alien Isolation, but it does have the same main character. So it's related in some shape or form, which Alien Isolation had a ton of success. It was like one of the most highly reviewed and highly revered horror games, I think, to come out in a while. But, you know, not talking about Alien Blackout, and this obviously happened with Diablo Immortal, and came out surrounding that after the April Fool's joke comment at BlizzCon. But so why is this happening to great franchises? And not that Alien Isolation was a great franchise, but it was a successful game. You know, you could easily replicate that game, make a direct sequel, Alien Blackout, and just put it on PC or console and have it be the same success.
And it's going to be more successful.
And the same with Diablo, right? I mean, you could easily make a Diablo 4 or just Diablo Immortal or something and put it on PC and just bring in money from my perspective. So why is this happening? Will this trend continue? And if it is just a money grab, why is it a money grab? I mean, wouldn't a PC game bring in, from my perspective, just as much money?
Well, it's just because everybody has a phone, so you have way more exposure when you have a game on a phone. Think of things like Candy Crush, like your mom plays Candy Crush, your grandparents play Candy
I try
Crush,
not
everybody.
To play Candy Crush.
Yeah, but you know that makes sense to me. It does resonate with me that they may get some numbers out of that idea.
But my mom's not gonna play Diablo.
Exactly. So this is the thing. There's the people who are playing Candy Crush
right now.
They don't want it. They're not real gamers. You know, those are just stimulating their feeble mind for a few. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that about your mom, but you know, I think that the big thing is it's like, okay, we have these devices and we can put these games on them, and then it's just another another avenue. You know what I mean? The PC thing limits. It's a limitation when you open it up with. You know, I think the best way that they should have done it would be put it out for the PC and a version for the mobile if they wanted to. You would figure that they would do something, but they might not have the resources to do something like that.
At least here, it seems like they missed, like you said, who wants to play a Diablo game on their phone? They kind of missed their target audience with that.
I agree with that. I agree with that 100%.
I mean, I keep hearing that. I keep hearing that, you know, it's going to go over to the Chinese market and make a ton of money, which, you know, I haven't been to China this year. I'm not sure how it's going over there. But, I mean, like, is it really that huge? I mean, we probably can't answer because, like, we really don't know the answer.
I don't know. I mean, I've heard that they're crazy about their phones.
It just seems a little bit unreal to me. I can't really. Obviously, it takes way less development time and way less money to make a mobile game than a huge PC game, but I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's the right move.
I strictly think it is because just another avenue. They want to have the most sources of revenue that is possible.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a market for phone gamers. I mean, there's probably not as many hardcore phone gamers as there are hardcore PC gamers, but if they're out there, this is probably going to be the game for them because there's not a ton of high budget AAA phone games that are worth playing.
Well, I think that we look at it like, because we are PC gamers, I think we look at it from the perspective of PC gamers, like not realizing that, like, all said and done, there's way more people that play mobile games than there are people that strictly play PC games.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Like, we look at it from
we literally, none of us have any perspective on the mobile. I mean, you guys played fucking what was it called? What is
Clash Royale.
Yeah. Oh God.
Great game.
I don't think I've ever played a game.
That'll be next week's topic. We can dive into Clash Royale. The current meta.
And like phone, like you can play on the go. You can play it while you're at work. Like, it's just more accessible and easier to do.
Oh, I guess the only game that I think I've played is Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Hearthstone's the only game that I've played on my phone.
It makes sense to go out on paper. It makes perfect sense for a company to do something like that, but
I think
presenting where they presented it and how they presented it was just.
I don't know. I don't know if it makes sense to take Diablo and put it on. I mean, I get why they want to get into mobile. I really do.
If you think about that top-down genre, it kind of makes sense on a phone a little bit.
You think?
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm just being pessimistic about it, but I can't see it.
Oh,
it'll break what
I make fun of it. I laugh at it.
It'll break all the records.
Just trying to be the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Maybe we just haven't seen a truly great.
I'll tell you right now.
Maybe the next WoW expansion's going to mobile. Maybe that's what we'll see.
Yeah, they just come out. They put out. They're like, the vanilla WoW is going to be strictly on mobile.
Yeah. Yeah, you can play it on your thermostats.
No, it's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy in the gaming industry. They're going to force our gaming hands to the mobile device, slowly but surely.
You think?
Yeah.
This is what they want?
This is it.
Yeah.
This is the last hurrah, yeah.
And like phones are getting better as time goes on. Like, they have better processors and better graphics and everything.
That's true.
They're actually, it's crazy how quickly that shit develops. It's insane.
And like, I think it really comes back to there's just every single person has a phone and you can play it anywhere at any time. A computer, you're locked down to one area.
Yep.
And you have to commit time to sit there and you have to buy a giant ass computer.
All about.
Everybody has a phone anyway. You're not paying, you know what I mean? It's not like you're buying a phone just to play games. You have it anyway. It's already there.
That's true. That's true.
All right, let's move on from this garbage.
You're done with this, leaving a bad taste in your mouth.
You know what I did have to say about that, actually, right before we leave this? I feel like we touched on this briefly maybe a few days ago, where just when you were saying like a graphical standpoint, where is there really to go next? I believe Matt, we were talking about how real can they make it? Can you make it look, but it almost seems like they're kind of getting to that limit on the computer, but we're just starting to really maybe get there on the phone again. So
I think I think that I didn't think about that. That's a perfect point, I think.
It's starting
it seems like for a while the industry was booming strictly because of technological advancements. Yep. Mainly just in the graphical area, right?
Right, yeah.
Like you would get a game and it would be a 1.5 year or 2 year turnover, and it would look like it was a completely different game.
Yep.
It was like brand new. You were like, holy crap, like this is the best thing I've ever seen in my life.
Just that feeling of
now firing
it up.
You can look at games that are coming out today and compare them to a game that came out 7 years ago, and you're like, this looks like dog shit. This isn't as good as it was back then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
But anyway, moving on. So next big piece of news, it actually just happened, but Bungie splits with Activision. So the original contract that they had for Destiny 2 was a 10-year contract. It lasted 8 years, and I would say it was pretty successful. Bungie is keeping the Destiny IP, which I think is really important because gives Bungie the resources to just and the IP, probably the most important part, to keep working on Destiny, which is their product originally. So I think that's really cool, and it also differs from the split that they did with Halo and Microsoft when they didn't keep the IP and they gave it to 343, I think was who took it. You obviously saw like a huge turn in that franchise due to that fact.
So Destiny players can expect more of the same.
Did Destiny 2 ever recover?
It sounded like it did recover, but
that was coming from our friends, though.
Yeah, but when you you take the general, it almost seems like this is the new norm. It's almost like a meme now. A bad game on release, it's always a bad game.
Yep.
But if you wait,
it does seem like that.
And release a good game, that's how you remember it, right?
At least these multiplayer games, it definitely seems like that.
You just can't rush things, go back and fix them.
Yeah, which seems like it seems to be that's what everybody wants to do. But yeah, well, nobody wants your first impression with anything is going to be your lasting impression. It's the same with a video game. It's the same when you meet a person for the first time in the first 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like somebody right off the bat, you're probably not going to like them for a long time. So I think it's the same thing with the game.
Well, just looking at Destiny 2, I've only seen gameplay of it, and from what I saw, the gameplay wise, we were watching our roommate play it. Full HD, it looked amazing. I mean, graphically, gameplay wise, the lighting, everything. This was on a console too. It blew me away. I was like, wow, this is a really polished game. But it sounded like some of the end game mechanics just.
That's what I was hearing
from well enough
from the boys.
Yeah, to really appease the diehard fans and keep them around.
Mm.
But maybe this is when you say Activision, they're kind of like the big baddie right now in the gaming
nobody
industry.
Likes them.
So
they
maybe
kind of are the big baddie. They're like the final boss.
Yeah, Activision Blizzard, Activision and Bungie. Maybe this split will allow Bungie to kind of get back to their glory days and turn Destiny 3 into like something.
If we could get IP like that original Halo franchise, that trilogy and Halo Reach, oh man, those are like the glory days for me. But I don't want to dive into all that. I could go on for hours. Let's jump into well, this is actually kind of older news now. This is probably like a week and a half old, but I really want to touch on it because so Blizzard announces Soldier 76 is homosexual. He's having a midlife crisis right now. He can't really figure out what's going on with himself.
No, it was in his younger life, man. It was in his younger life. He was bi-curious.
All right, his past is catching up to him finally. So I don't really want to touch on that too much, but what I do want to touch on is Blizzard has been getting, like you just touched on, Adam, Activision is the big baddie in the industry, and Blizzard being tied up with them is getting a ton of bad press. And I'm sure some of that's Blizzard's fault as well. It's not like just Activision is sucking and Blizzard's doing everything right. But is this diversion just something to get good PR from? Just something to do? You can just tweet something out and immediately wash away some of your sins. And, as a follow-up to that, does the saying all press is good press, which applies to, I think, a lot of things, does it apply to the gaming industry, or are gamers kind of waking up to the fact that, whenever there's a lot of negative press going around about something, that kind of sticks to the company and they can't get away from it?
I don't think that's. I don't even know if that's as true anymore as it used to be.
Let's go with this right now. Every single one of us. All press is good press. What do you think? What do you say, Wolf? Yes or no?
I think that's becoming more true as time goes on.
Yes, I agree. Unfortunately,
because
I would say most of the time it's true, but there are some things that are so bad that it's not good.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I would say generally any press is good press, but there are instances where it can be your downfall still.
Well, how many gay haters are gonna quit playing?
You think?
Especially in the political climate that we're in now, like
the always eloquent Ben Blockman.
If you do something that's frowned upon by society, it's gonna hurt you more than it's gonna help you.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, certainly they can bury you. I think it's unnatural. I think that it is they're going off that concept. All press is good press, and they're just running with this. I mean, they did the Tracer thing, and now they're doing this. It's cool. I think me and Wolf we were talking about a little bit. I think that if it happens naturally in a story, then okay. I don't think this was natural. I think this was implemented. I don't think anybody who's developing these games is like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to have if he had a gay lover?
Well, it just seems weird. I mean, and let's take it back to World of Warcraft. Like, could you imagine, like, you're waiting to fight Arthas after 5 years from Warcraft 3, and you finally get to fight him, and he's just like homosexual all of a sudden or something. It's like it would never happen, but like, could you imagine like just some twist on that, like on one of your favorite characters was playing a game for like 8 years? It just makes sense.
Well, for me, it's not even like a PR thing. They're just doing it to like appease a small group of people that's not the minority, like that's not the majority. To keep them happy, because like they don't like, it's probably not going to hurt their main player base, but it makes the gaming environment seem more inclusive.
Right.
Exactly.
To other people that are like different or weird or whatever you want to call them. And I think that is kind of what they're doing.
They really are. It's almost like they're over representing this group of
minority
people. I mean,
population. Yeah.
It really doesn't matter. Like, do any of us probably really care that? I mean, the entire Overwatch cast could be homosexual. Right? It really wouldn't make a difference to me.
I don't care either.
Right?
Well, I do want to point. I think that I think Dave's main was Soldier 76.
He was a big Soldier 76.
Dave, you want to speak on that a little bit? When you were playing him, did you get any vibes or anything?
I mean, he didn't really seem that gay when I was playing him.
Well, that's the thing. It's like, so yeah, there's masculine gay people out there.
Why not like
generally speaking, what we're looking for in this character is masculinity, you know what I mean, a certain type of,
Yeah, well, why not Lucio, the guy that like wears neon and uses rollerblades as his main form of transportation?
Oh no.
Oh crap. Let's move on to Adam. You wanted to talk about this. AMD just announced the release of their new graphics cards and processors to compete directly with Intel. You just want to touch on, what that's going to look like for the industry, and maybe we get like a drop in prices, or maybe we get better quality, maybe a little bit of both.
Yeah. So the CES conference that they have this year, AMD made some really big announcements as far as their new processors coming out this year. They gave some tentative dates. Middle of 2019 is when they're expecting these, and as well as their new line of graphics cards. And what was probably the most exciting part of that was they did some right there on the stage, heads up competition between Intel CPUs and NVIDIA graphics cards with their new AMD line. And
no, they didn't. Those madmen.
Yeah, well, they didn't put out the actual the clock speeds and things like that for this new hardware coming up, but what it did show is that they looked really competitive, and that bodes really well for I think us as the consumer, right? When you don't have Intel dominating the CPU market and NVIDIA dominating the GPU market, you have a competitor in AMD that can rival them, and that's what it looked like. It looked like awesome. They put out something at a comparable price point. I think their graphics card was maybe $100 less than the NVIDIA counterpart, and it put out similar performance for people, gaming at 1440p and 4K, and that's kind of where the outlook for gamers is going. Everybody wants the higher resolution, the bigger FPS,
and not just the gamers. Let's talk about the Bitcoin miners.
Yeah, that big time industry.
They love that resolution.
Doing really well. They're going to be excited. All those cores and those processors, all that memory on that new graphics card. But yeah, it was just. They had the models there. That wasn't like I said, any real numbers. We're going to have to wait and see what they actually look like, what we can do as far as overclocking them. Are they really going to compete? But in my eyes, any competition is good competition when it comes to something that we all care about a lot. Computers.
Definitely.
Building computers, gaming.
And,
this is the big stuff.
That actually rolls into the next topic here, and I'm super excited about this for the same reason, and it's for competition, and competition brings innovation and great prices. Epic Games.
Wow, that's a low
price. Wow, that's a low price. Epic Games just announced that it's going to open up its own online game store to compete with Steam. And we really haven't seen anything like this in the industry, ever. And the reason this is so huge is because of the revenue splits that developers are going to get from Epic compared to what they were getting on Steam. So on Steam, for every game sale, a developer was taking a cut of 70%, and Steam was taking 30%, which kind of blows my mind. That seems like a huge cut, but Steam did have Steam provided the access to a huge player base, so I guess they could kind of do just whatever they wanted. But Epic Games is going to make it 88% of profit going to developers and 12% going to Epic, which is just it's an enormous jump. I think it's awesome. Anytime developers are getting more money, I mean, I'm all for it. We can see developers making more money, making better games, maybe taking their time more because they know that they can make more profit, which we were just talking about. Look how it all ties together. It's beautiful. We could maybe see less microtransactions and loot boxes as a revenue model. I mean, maybe not, just because everybody seems to be doing it now, but maybe a developer says, hey, I'm getting 18% more on every cut of every sale that I'm making. Do I really need these loot boxes, or can I maybe skate by and not water down the game? Right. Which I think is huge.
Yeah, I'm tired of these microtransactions. They're ruining the games.
They are. It's exciting that somebody else is gonna go after Steam.
Yes, yeah. I don't know.
It seems like people like Steam a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
These numbers haven't been thrown out in front of them before, though. Probably
no other alternative.
Yes, exactly.
I mean, they do a lot of good things. Steam, like their Greenlight program and stuff, but they also do some lousy stuff with allowing all that alpha, beta nonsense flying into. So maybe that'll go away as a consequence. To maybe Epic Games will kind of.
Yeah, maybe a developer won't need to do that because they'll have more money to make in a few months and can just continue to develop their game.
Good point.
That would be great. I hate, and I know a lot of people do too. That stupid alpha release of a game. What we bought The Forest like 3 years ago, and it just finally got released as like a full-fledged game. Like how many months ago? It's ridiculous. How you can do that. You're selling an incomplete game at full price, and then you just sit there staring at it for years.
Yeah, I don't agree with that either. I think it's one of the things that they need to do away with. It just doesn't. It seems I don't know if dishonest is the right word. It just seems like take the time out, make a good product, and get it to us.
So then Epic Games is going to be helping out these developers more to actually get us this better, hopefully better product, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the optimism. Yeah.
Well, you don't know how. Well, I mean, this is relatively. You said this was yesterday.
A couple days ago, maybe like 5 days ago or something.
Well, Steam's probably gonna have a response for this. I mean, they're not just gonna sit. They may. Those numbers could change. You would imagine if they would want to.
They would have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's also. I can't really see a negative coming from this because if Steam just is going to lower their rev share split, then that's also good for developers. Like, I guess, I don't really care if anybody goes to Epic Games at all. Right. But as long as it forces Steam to force its hand and drop to the same revenue split, I'm fine with that. That's great.
But is Steam going to drop the same revenue split if Epic's platform doesn't actually do anything?
Exactly.
Users?
It's going to take some time, right?
Yeah, they might be.
The thing that they have in their favor for Epic Games is they have Fortnite, which is like the most popular game right now.
Yep.
So they have a user base that would go to their game center, whatever the hell you want to call it.
A huge base.
I mean, that could be enough.
And they just had the Division 2 announced that it's going to be sold solely on Epic and not on Steam. Not that the Division is like the greatest game of all time, but I'm sure that people are excited for it.
It's probably got a pretty big base.
I mean, that's pretty bold, and that's pretty. I mean, that's a very. I'm trying to think of the right word.
It's
a quick announcement. It's a quick announcement right after they just announced the game store. So like I think that we see more games following suit in the same fashion in the future.
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, think how easy it is just to download. Just download the other one. You know what I mean? Like it's like not that big of a deal, to switch over or to use both.
Right.
So
maybe for this like newer, I think there's probably, the way I'm thinking about it, this newer generation of gamer coming up, because there's a lot of younger kids playing Fortnite. They're probably not as invested into Steam as people like us have been PC gaming for quite a while now. And I know that there's a lot of people that are really attached to their huge Steam library, and that's going to be really hard for them to make the jump. And you just every time a holiday comes around, people just pour money into that thing just to build their library. I mean, I know people that have more games than they can actually ever play. They'll never play them.
Yep.
But it's like a collection. It's a cool thing to have.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a barrier to entry, I think, for Epic Games. But I mean, from my perspective, just personally speaking, I would have no problem collecting games in a different game center other than Steam, just to help the developers make 18% more on every game sale. I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, like, what? So you have to click a button, an extra button every time you want to play a game.
So
like,
what is the question
deal?
is, there's a lot of like, I don't know how they're going to be able to deal with, like, Steam has a lot of specific like indie, small developer games. I mean, are they going to go with that approach too? Are they going to be having just a shitload of games like Steam does?
Hopefully.
Or are they going to be
I would
more
think
like
they are.
Yeah. Are they going to go like more like the mainstream?
This seems like it would really benefit the indie developers, because they really don't. The price so small that they maybe aren't too tied up into Steam or anything like that. And a lot of the bigger companies, like the biggest companies, don't use Steam anyways. They make their own game stores. They don't use Steam at all. They're cutting into their profit.
Right.
The most recent, I think, like Madden 19. I mean, EA has their own, and then Call of Duty, which is also, I think, on that same one. I mean, you don't buy those new ones. Most people don't buy them. I don't think you can buy them all on Steam, right? That's
nope.
Right.
They're not.
And then you have stuff
like
we have stuff like Battle.net too.
Yeah, that as well.
Which is obviously
the Blizzard's already made it apparent that you're not going to go through. They're doing their own thing.
Right.
It just kind of gives that option to those smaller companies to.
It will be interesting to see how successful it is and how Steam reacts. For certain.
Yeah, I agree. I'm sure they'll come out with a statement eventually, or I would think pretty soon.
Yeah,
you don't have more games like the Division 2 going straight to Epic.
I just don't see Steam doing that much about it until they consider it like a legitimate threat.
Yep.
I'm not sure that
it wouldn't make any sense for them. They have such a hold. It wouldn't even make sense for them to do anything.
I'm not sure that it could be a threat, but I don't think it's a threat currently.
Yeah.
Like, it has the potential to be like a threat to them, but like until they launch it and it either has users or doesn't have users, I don't think you can really make a call about it.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
It makes perfect sense.
I think they have a really good base. If you can push with that Fortnite crowd, honestly, I mean,
all the kids getting money from their fucking parents and shit.
Yeah, like they probably don't have a Steam library yet. If you push them in this direction of the Epic Game Store, they're probably gonna stay.
I mean, they're logging into it daily anyway, right? So what's the big deal?
Yep.
And if Division 2 does well, it looks cool. they keep demoing it at that CES convention.
Yeah, well, the first one looked really cool too, and it didn't really live up to it.
Now, real quick, we're winding down here, huh, Matt?
Yeah, but what's up?
Real quick, so if we were to play Vanilla WoW, if we were going to play it, starting
classic.
Yes, classic WoW, I should say. Starting with Wolfenstein, what race and what class would you be?
I easily a human paladin. That's
human paladin, no questions asked.
Choice, yeah.
Loser.
What about you, Dave?
I played a Tauren hunter in vanilla, so I feel like it would only be proper to do the same.
I'm being a fucking orc shaman, man.
Were ret pallies out at that point?
Yeah.
They were a thing.
Anything but that then. Literally anything except ret pally. I
could see you being a troll.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
troll priest or something.
They don't have organs though, right? That's just a new.
Yeah, you can't be a worgen.
That's a shame. I would be worgen.
Yeah, I mean we could take you out to what is it, Duskwood, or take you out there, get you.
Yeah, you could just hang out with the world.
Yeah, right.
That's probably not lore. Correct. I don't think those are the same people, but
I'll be just doing like my own version of like The Sims. I'll just be hanging out with
role playing.
There's out there. Yeah.
Level.
Just join a role play server.
Dude, I love role playing. I don't know about you guys.
Who said WoW's dying?
Yeah, that's it's fine. WoW Classic's gonna be great.
All right. Well, that's all I had. It's all the news and all the WoW stuff. Thank you guys for spending the time. I had a lot of fun.
That was good.
Anybody else have anything they want to bring up, or we wrap this episode 1 up and talk to you next week?
To all the listeners out there, private server Final Fantasy 11, Nasomi, change your life, man.
Change your life.
Go back 16 years into the past and just realize that great game, beautiful music, beautiful world to explore.
Yeah, I'll second what Ben said.
I have absolutely no comments on it.
Yeah,
I don't even know what you're talking about.
But no, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Good chat with y'all.
See you guys.
Peace.
Oh, see you later.
See you later.